Hello and welcome to the Inappropriate Harry Potter podcast. My name is Natalie.
And I'm Donna Marie.
Donna Marie liked to keep us waiting there with a bit of suspense, which is why we brought you back on. We like your suspense. So we are looking at the Portkey, which is chapter 6 of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Let's just dive straight in, shall we? So where are we at the beginning of the Portkey, chapter 6?
We start with Harry being woken up by Molly Weasley. He's in bed and he's sharing the bed with the twins.
Okay. So it must be a double bed then, you'd hope, not a single bed.
I don't know. It's the Weasley household, isn't it? They could all just be sharing a sock.
Dobby's right at the bottom there.
They're all sleeping in one of Hagrid's massive socks.
Oh, actually, that's really gross. Just thinking about Hagrid's sweaty, smelly feet. No offense, Hagrid, but you know you do. So when I read this bit about them being woken up really early, I totally forgot why they were being woken up so early. Do you remember at this moment in time why they were waking up so early?
Yeah, because I just listened to your previous podcast where you're talking about the World Cup.
Right, so I hadn't bothered to listen to my episode. And I was like, I wonder, I just assumed they were going to Hogwarts because I wasn't paying attention and totally forgot about the Quidditch World Map. So I was trying to figure out why they were getting up so early in September. And I wanted to find out what time the train leaves to go to Hogwarts. Because I was trying to figure out what time they wake up to go to Hogwarts. I spent a lot of time doing this. So out of interest, they live in Devon, don't they? Alongside the River Otter. How long do you reckon it takes for them to get to London to get the train?
For me to get to London, it takes 4 hours. So 3 3/4 hours.
Perfect. Yeah. So the train leaves at 11. So I was like, why are they getting up so early to catch the train? Of course, this is totally a moot point because they weren't actually catching the train anyway. But then I was thinking, I'm just focusing on the train for a little bit and then I'll move back to the Quidditch match. So if the Hogsmeade train, leaves at 11 a.m. and it arrives at Hogwarts after nightfall, do you have any idea what time nightfall is in September in the UK?
About 4:30.
9 o'clock.
No, it's not. It's dark now.
You might need to check that. But according to Google, okay,
you might need to check that.
The listeners might need to check that. So I was like, okay, so that means that it takes, is it called the Hogsmeade train?
I have no idea.
Hogwarts train. It takes then 10 hours for the students to get from London to Hogwarts. So then I was going on Google Maps trying to find out where Hogwarts could be.
Scotland?
That's what I thought, but apparently it only takes 3 or 5 hours, I can't tell, my writing's too messy, to get to Scotland. So I was like, well then Hogwarts can't be in Scotland. Any other idea where that Hogwarts could be if it takes 10 hours to get there?
The Orkney Islands.
I didn't check, but that would be doing really good. So I Googled the map. It took me like 35 minutes of my life. I'm never getting back. And apparently Hogwarts is going to have to be in Zurich or Turin in Italy.
It's definitely in the UK though.
Wow, that's what we were led to believe with the cinematography and the book.
And everything that we have read and heard since the invention of books. I'm going to call nonsense here. And I think this has all been led by the misunderstanding about when nightfall is, because it is now 10 to 6 and it is pitch black. So it's been pitch black for about an hour. I reckon it's only taken them about 6 hours, and it's probably in the north somewhere.
Yeah, I think that sounds more probable because I'm just not getting an Italian vibe from Hogwarts. But yeah, anyway, a little bit of a deviation. And then I carried on reading and I realized, going to the Quidditch World Cup, and I thought, wow, that's 45 minutes of my life I'm never getting back, but I'm still going to mention it in the podcast because that took up a lot of my energy.
So let me stop you there for a second, because I can feel like you've got full steam behind you and you're ready to jump on something else. But let's just think about Natalie's process. So you've picked up a book, you've read maybe 2/3 of the first paragraph, and you've suspended your reading to jump straight onto Google.
It definitely disrupted the flow, I'm not going to lie.
So I've just Googled where is Hogwarts supposed to be located, and it says the Highlands of Scotland.
Yeah, but Donna Marie, we're muggles. They're not going to tell us where it actually is. That's why I had to get my detective hat on and work out the actual logistics.
So as a qualified therapist, what I'm suggesting, and we're both qualified therapists, what I'm suggesting is perhaps some kind of psychological intervention if you are struggling to understand reality and you're fighting the facts to support your wild theories. I reckon some cognitive restructuring, just to kind of sort out that inappropriate thinking style that you're having.
We'll do that after we've been to Zurich and I point out Hogwarts to you.
Okay.
And then it will have been for something.
I'll take the holiday anyway.
So
let's go back. We're in bed with Harry, Fred, and George. Mm-hmm.
I had to stop myself from saying Chrissy wishes because she would love that combo, but
don't stop yourself. This is supposed to be an inappropriate Harry Potter podcast.
I'm just saying, for a lot of people that would be like their dream, but yeah, like a Weasley Potter sandwich.
Keep me out of that sandwich, please.
You can just watch.
I don't want to see the sandwich either. I don't want to see the sandwich. I don't want to smell the sandwich. I want to be nowhere near
it. I hate being woken up early, so I really felt for the boys when they were like complaining to Molly and the dad, like, oh, it's so late, it's so early. Sorry, I could feel that.
Especially as a teenager when you struggle to wake up anyway, but it's always so much more exciting if you've got somewhere to be, isn't it? It feels different. It's not like getting up early for school or work.
Yeah. And what else happens? Mr. Weasley checks with Harry that he's dressed.
You're like, yeah, whatever, let's move on.
Yeah, whatever, I'm not interested. Lost interest, love.
Fine.
I'd much rather talk about Mr. Weasley's clothes. I think he sounds like a bit of a fashionista. He's got baggy jeans, leather belt, check shirt. I was like, yeah, tick, tick, tick.
Okay, let's check in with actually what he's wearing, which is a Pringle golf jumper, dad jeans, and a thick leather belt.
That is so weird how I reimagined his whole look.
I love how sexy you guys find the Weasleys, because I think that's quite unique to your family.
Well, you don't like Ginny?
She's a child, so I'm going to have a strong no there.
Oh, Donna Marie, that says more about you than it does about me, because I was obviously referring to her as an adult.
Which we never see. In the books, she never gets any older than 17. And as a 37-year-old woman, I definitely cannot be commenting on 17-year-old children.
Very, very true. I found out that they head towards Stoat's Head, don't they? Which is where they end up meeting other wizards who are going to the Quidditch World Cup. Turns out Stoat's Head Hill is a lie, isn't a real place in Devon. So for anyone living in Devon, e.g. you, don't spend your time looking for it.
Do you know how many weekends I've wasted?
I just feel bad for you, Donna Marie, and other muggles that have been in search of Stoat's Head Hill.
I'm going to have to find a new plan now. I'm going to have to go back to stalking Kate Bush. But you've jumped ahead because I have some things I want to discuss prior to us going up to that hill. And seeing this is only a 14-minute chapter, let's take a little bit of time to labour. So we're in the kitchen and they're talking about apparating. This is the first time I found out that you needed a license and you need to complete a test. Did you know that?
It's really hard when you've read all of the books to remember what you've been told already, but I think you're right. I think this is the first time, isn't it, that we get told, because Harry's like, apparate what? And they have to explain it to him.
Well, this is a little bit of a foreshadowing anyway, isn't it? Because we look a lot more at apparition later. But then they started to discuss, you know, the test and that people can get splinched. Were you paying much attention to that part?
Yeah, that sounded painful.
Do you want to explain what splinching is, or shall I do that?
You can do it.
Thank you.
Because I skipped this bit.
I can tell. So they're talking about people that have been splinched, and essentially what that means is that they've left half of themselves in a place that they tried to apparate from, and half of themselves arrives in the place that they are trying to apparate to. Did this pose any questions for you? Oh, sorry, Natalie.
No, sorry. I was just going to say they use that example of that couple, don't they? I just thought, doesn't that mean that they would die?
Thank you. Thank you. So is wizarding biology different to our physiology? Are we built differently? Because if half of me was in Blackpool visiting my family and half of me was here, I'm pretty sure I'd be dead.
Yeah, and it's either way, even if it was like horizontally or vertically, either way, there's going to be a lot of bleeding.
I just don't understand.
Don't get
it. So why is it not killing them? Is it working a bit like a portal, like you are still whole, but you are able to be in two places at once, which really makes this a bit more of a sci-fi book than it does magical.
That's so interesting.
We need a physicist to come in and explain to us how this can happen.
There must be a physicist listening to our podcast who could just give us a bit of insight there.
I should bleeding well imagine so. There's so many listeners. One of them's got to be a physicist.
But now I'm thinking, I think we mentioned before, do wizards live longer than muggles? And or do they have more resilience to things that would ordinarily kill a muggle? If you think about all the accidents that Harry Potter's been involving broomsticks and magical mishaps and stuff. Oh, is there something in that?
Well, no, because everything we've been told so far is there's been a remedy for it. So if you imagine when he's falling off a broomstick, someone's normally saved him one way or another. So they've softened his fall. And if they've been subjected to something that's going to cause him harm, then they discuss the kind of herbology, the things that will repair them. Like breaking bones doesn't seem to be any different. They might have a different way of treating it, but that looks like a long and painful process. I don't get it. I don't get it, Natalie.
I don't get it. And also it seems like, okay, so there's this threat of being splinched. So what, when you're doing your theory and your practice, what's to stop you from getting splinched then? Do you have some sort of, stabilizers on you that prevent you from getting splinched? You know what I mean?
And they say that Bill or Charlie, I can't recall which one, failed their test once. So what happened when they failed? They must have been splinched to have failed, because surely if they successfully went from one place to another, they would have passed. So yeah, I don't get it.
Isn't it something really small, like he left a boot behind? But very bizarre.
Maybe that's why Bill has such calloused hands.
Yes. What, because he left his skin behind?
He compromised the integrity of his hand skin, leaving behind just trails of flesh.
Oh, wow.
Sorry, that was quite visceral, wasn't it?
So visceral. And I think I very much visualize things that people tell me. I'm just kind of in a bit of turmoil right now, trying to unimagine that.
Well, you're welcome. I'm glad to engage your imagination.
And also, is it Bill the hot one, or is it Charlie that me and Chris fancied?
I don't know. Bill's the one. I thought you fancied Charlie, because isn't Bill the one that's got the little he's the one with the dragon's tooth or something, and he's wearing dragon hind boots, and he didn't find that very sexy. Is that right? I don't know. I get them mixed up.
Same. But I think you're right. I think that's the one.
There's so many of them.
Yeah.
And Charlie's a sexier name than Bill, isn't it?
I think so.
Surely if he was a sexy one, he'd have shortened his name to Will or Willie. Let's move on. So also, before we get to the hill that you're trying to steam ahead to, much like the Weasleys.
You're killing me here.
Do you remember what Molly did to George in the kitchen?
Oh, did she steal his sweeties?
She did. So she saw that there was something in his pocket, and he's got more of those tongue-tied toffees. Was anything you noticed when she was doing this?
Did she gobble some of them up?
I reckon she didn't.
I bet she's like, oh no, these are no good. You shouldn't be making these. Gobble, gobble, gobble. I don't remember.
That would be so good, because I'm quite orally fixated and I like eating and drinking and everything. So if I could have this kind of punishment, maybe I'd break my relationship with that comfort. I need something like tongue-tied toffees. That'd be a really good psychological instrument.
Yeah, that is a good trick. No, I can't remember what she does to George. I just remember her taking the sweets and then him being like, that took us 6 months to make.
Oh, yeah, that is a shame. What she did was she pointed her wand at him and she said, Axio. And she did that 3 times, okay? How did she know that there was 3 toffees in his pocket? She was starting to play with danger a little bit. She could have pulled something else out of his pocket at that point.
Yeah, like some condoms.
I was thinking his penis, but okay, condoms is fine. I was like, don't point that wand and call whatever's in his pocket over to you. You're being really dangerous there. Yeah,
she shouldn't really be pointing her wand near his crotch. That is dangerous and inappropriate. Come on, Molly. You're right. Why didn't she do it a 4th time and then nothing happened, and then she would have been like, okay, put my wand away. I've got all the sweets.
Just stop doing it. Go once you found out that he's got these sweets in his pocket, pop over and ask him to empty his pockets, and then maybe pat the front of him. Don't just keep pulling things over by magic. You could have pulled his pee-pee off.
I don't think she should be patting his front, Donna Marie.
I think she should give the front of his legs a good fondle.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was thinking way higher than the front of his.
That's fan fiction that you're verging into.
Yeah.
A really, really dark area of fan fiction. Yeah, okay.
But you're right. Treat him like an adult and say, look, George, give me the sweets that are in your pocket.
That, and also they rely on magic for absolutely everything, don't they? Don't check him with magic. She could have done anything. She could have pulled his trousers off.
It is a little bit violating, isn't it? Someone to just sort of remove something against your will. That's a bit authoritarian there, actually.
Can you imagine as a teenager if people start pulling things out of your pockets or your bag over to them? The things they would have found on me would have been horrifying.
What kind of things, Donna Marie?
Sad sketches, poems, really, really sad love poems, that kind of stuff. I was a very, very embarrassing teenager. I'd have hated this to happen to me, because goodness knows what had been recalled off my body.
Oh, yeah. It is a little bit humiliating. I wonder how she knew that he had sweets in his pockets. Do you think he had like really, really like skinny jeans on? Because ordinarily you can't really tell what's in people's pockets.
I just don't think you should be looking around your son's groin area saying there's a lump in your pocket and then using Axio to pull whatever it is over.
Yeah, that's not cool. That isn't cool.
Why are you looking there, Mum?
Yeah, Molly, why are you looking?
So you skimmed over some of my biggest areas of questioning, but you can trot back onto the hill now if you want.
I don't know why I was so keen. I know why. It's because of that Portkey. I got really excited about the etymology. It all started to kick off.
Walk me through it.
So I thought there was. So, for those of you who don't know, a portkey is an item that can look quite ordinary and it's got some magic in it and it takes you to a specific place. Did you know that it can transport muggles?
I didn't know that. I hadn't even thought of it.
Yeah, so it's a real problem actually because I know a lot of muggles that might see an old boot or a sock and pick it up, and maybe that's where people go when we disappearances. When you say my cat's gone missing, I'm
Oh
thinking,
my
oh,
gosh,
maybe
that's
it
where
picked
all the
something up in
missing
its mouth.
dogs are.
Yeah,
That's where they are. They've
I
like
know it's really
touched a boot or something and they've been flung to Scotland.
yeah, or Turin or or Zurich. So that concerns me a little bit. Do you know, I've got a multiple choice question for you here. So, which incantation do you need to turn an object into a portkey? Is it A, portus, B, importatus, or C, via portus diem?
Well, I imagine importatus would be to import something, to bring something to you. So I can't imagine it's that one. The DM is day, isn't it? So I don't see how that would be relevant. So I imagine it's portus.
Hey, well, I should have said exportatus. That would have tricked you. But you're right, it is portus. Well done.
Thanks. Well, I wish I'd done that well on the quiz, the Christmas quiz.
Oh, yeah, that would have been good. It's quite good fun doing these multiple choice questions.
I like it. While we're talking about the Portkey, I'm sure you have plenty more to say about it. Did you notice how many people were going to be going to the World Cup?
Like how many people were touching that specific portkey to go?
Now, how many people overall are supposed to be attending the World Cup?
Oh, I don't know. I think I skimmed over hundreds of thousands.
What did you read exactly? You read Portkey and train, and that was it. You're done.
Yeah.
There wasn't even train in it. It was just woken up. Why are they waking up? They're catching a train. They must be. Okay. So I did a basic bit of math in this area because she said, or mathematics rather, because I'm English, not American English. She said there was 100,000 wizards going to the World Cup. Okay. And some of those people were apparating, and everyone's going that day. So if we imagine only 50,000 people are going to travel by Portkey, and around 20 people were attending each Portkey, which isn't true because only 9 people use this Portkey, that would be 2,500 separate attempts at a Portkey.
That's insane.
Right, so we've got 50, yeah. So imagine we've got 50,000 people and there's 2,500 Portkeys, then that would be 20 people attending each one. So who's coordinating that? Who's overseeing it?
Maybe the Department of Magical Transport.
So they would have to have hundreds of staff, wouldn't they? Because they actually indicate there's 200 Portkeys, which meaning that each one would have to be used 250 times in one morning. But they say there's only 9 people touching this Portkey. I don't think this has been considered properly.
No, because as well, you're going to have to think of 200 portkeys, did you say, that aren't going to be, that look too ordinary for Muggle to touch. So it can't be like a bin. Because I was thinking, just make all the bins in the UK a portkey, but then everyone touches bins.
Yeah, exactly. They don't even know what a portkey is. Like even the wizards don't know what the portkey is. They're looking for it when they get there. So this just seems crazy. This seems like a really poorly executed system.
Yeah, like why don't they just build a fireplace or a series of fireplaces in the stadium and then they can just use flue powder?
Yeah, or they could have some kind of incantation over it so that the object is universal, all wizards know what it is, but muggles can't see it, much like they did with the tent in the last book.
Yeah, because as well, now I'm thinking, well, how many muggles accidentally touched a portkey, not realizing what it was?
I think there's too much area spent foreshadowing at this point and not enough time on the mathematics, which doesn't add up.
Yeah, I know what you mean by foreshadowing. What particular piece of text are you referring to here?
I'm talking to just referring generally to the Portkey, because she's setting up this use of the Portkey, and people can access an object, and that object may not be identifiable by the wizard, but it will transport them. More than, if there's 50,000 people traveling groups of 20, that would be 2,500 separate entries. She's not thinking about that. And that's all going to happen in one morning before 8 o'clock because it's happening at dawn. That wasn't considered because the maths don't add up. But it seems to be more of a setup of what's going to happen later in the book.
Yeah, you're right. She's focusing on that. I mean, there might have been people flying in on vestrals and broomsticks and a lot of, no, you're right. It doesn't add up.
I just didn't even consider the whole group. I only looked at 50,000, considering that some people would be apparating, but no one under the age of 17. So all parents wouldn't be able to apparate because they'd be taking their children. It's a World Cup, so I imagine there's a lot of children. And broomsticks, they still need to be careful with that, don't they? Because that can still be observed by the pedestrian muggle.
Exactly. It's odd that they have to arrive on this very specific day.
The only people with any foresight seems to be Luna and her dad that went a week before.
Oh yeah, why didn't everyone do that?
Maybe they haven't got the vacation time. I don't know if it's the same. I don't know if they get like 27 days guaranteed holiday a year like we do in the UK. Maybe they have their own separate laws. Maybe it's more like 0 guaranteed hours like in America. Holiday, maybe that's the reason.
Yeah, because Mr. Lovegood is his own boss, isn't he? Like he does his own thing. By the way, did you know that apparently the Weasleys live in the same village as the Lovegoods and the Diggories, and yet they don't seem to kind of interact with each other during the summer holidays, do they?
No, they don't. Yeah, because it's weird that Cedric doesn't hang around with them more, but he's a year older, isn't he?
Yeah.
So maybe they're not cool enough for him, and maybe Fred and George are too annoying because they're always
Yeah.
pranking, and they're quite involved in themselves. But they do spend time with Luna sometimes, don't they? But she's maybe a little bit too eccentric for them.
Yeah, I think they have to sort of grow into her a little bit and have like shared experiences and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe because she's a unique character. I love her, but maybe as a child you'd find her a bit much. Would you travel by Portkey if it was available to you?
I don't know, because you can get port sickness, can't you? Portkey sickness, and they describe it as being hooked around is it the stomach and then dragged backwards, which isn't how I like to be transported.
No, it's like a hook in the navel, isn't it?
Would you?
Well, I thought I did until you reminded me of that.
Well, apparently portkeys were used before Hogwarts Express came along, but too many students got portkey sickness and maybe had trouble finding the portkey.
How do you know that?
I googled it. I wish I just knew it as general knowledge, but
because you colluded with JK to write these books.
I actually wrote over 60% of the content of these books, and I got no credit
enough
for
recognition, do you? You just really don't.
I get nothing. Absolutely nothing. But what I didn't know, I mean, did you know that the government, the magical government, whatever it's called, it has to approve or authorize the use of portkeys. And Dumbledore's a bit naughty because he makes portkeys without permission, and that's why Cornelius Fudge is a bit annoyed at him in the next few books. Did you know that?
I did know that you needed, for the actual portkey itself. Well, no, I didn't. But if you need a license to travel by portkey, it makes sense you need a license to create them. But Dumbledore's just a bit of a bugger, isn't he?
So rogue.
So rogue. But that's why we like him. You love a bad boy. Do you fancy Dumbledore now? Now you know that.
a little bit more than I did before. But not as much as I need to for things to go further between us.
He is apparently homosexual, so he's unlikely that willing himself, but maybe you could just be good friends.
I've always wanted to be friends with someone like Dumbledore, someone who's really wise and who's really powerful. He's got a nice voice. In my head, he's got a nice voice.
I imagine he smells a bit musty though.
Yeah, and licoricey for some reason.
Oh, lovely.
And like pipe smoke.
I fancy him a bit more now.
Yeah, we've created a really hot version of Dumbledore.
God, Dumbledore, sexy bugger.
He is. Before we focus too much on Dumbledore's sexiness, do you have any idea what Portkey might mean? The etymology of it, like if we tear it apart.
Well, a key is a link between something or to open something, isn't it? And a port is somewhere that you go to travel. So those two things.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Apparently, in French, porter means to carry, which is funny because when you have a porter, they take, like in a hospital, they kind of take people from one to the next. So I was like, oh, okay.
Oh yeah, I never considered that, linking port to porter. A porter is somewhere that you go to leave somewhere, and a porter moves something.
Yeah, and like in hotels too, right? You can get a porter. I mean, how did you feel about this chapter?
I felt like it was quite short, so I was being significantly more pedantic than I hoped to be. It was nice to get Cedric. Cedric turns up at the end, doesn't he, and travels with them. And that travel does not sound very nice. So it's nice to get Cedric reintroduced. It was quite a light chapter, but I'd say my overarching feeling was, why isn't Molly going? That was my thoughts. What was yours?
That's a good point. Molly misses out on all the fun. Like, she doesn't go to pick up Harry from the Dursleys either. She stays at home. Chrissy picked up on that as well, actually.
Always been left behind. Don't put baby in the corner.
Don't put baby in the corner. Molly needs to dance. She's a bird. She needs to be free. Part of me wonders if she's having an affair,
Oh, who with? Luna's dad?
Oh, no.
One of the names?
It has to be, maybe she's hiding Lupin, Professor Lupin, in the house. And they're going to have, I don't know. I just think it's a bit weird that she never goes along to any of these trips. It's almost like, yeah, you're the mum, you stay at home and you're going to make bacon sandwiches and iron my socks. And it's like, no. I reckon Molly's got a dark side, she's like a belly dancer.
She might just write erotic novels because she likes, what was his name? Gilderoy Lockhart. I reckon she sits at home writing erotic novels about Lockhart.
Yeah, writing out her fantasies. Because, what does she actually have? Why isn't she coming along? And what is the function of her not going along? Is it because Mr. Weasley's kind of a bit of a, I don't know, he's a bit lax, isn't he? Like, he's not exactly the most authoritarian parent.
It's a really traditional setup, isn't it? That he goes out, he earns some money, she looks after the kids, which is absolutely fine. But when's Molly's time? It seems to be that she only looks after the family, whereas he gets to go and tinker with cars and go on these days out. The setup's a little bit too traditional for my liking. It's not very progressive, Molly. Step up.
Yeah, I wanted to have a little bit more going on, a bit more of an identity outside of making really awesome sandwiches in the morning and waking the kids up for breakfast. But she's just a little bit, I don't know, not a lot going on there.
I would like to try her food though.
A fig?
Sure, but her food.
Oh, totally misheard. Definitely try a fig, and yes, I would really love to try some of her food.
I've tried a fig before and it was great. So hopefully Molly's food will be on the same kind of level.
Oh man, now I'm hungry. Great.
Well, you're about to go out now, so hopefully you can get a good snack.
True. I'm going to try and find somewhere that does food exactly like how Molly Weasley makes it. Before we finish today, just a little notification that we have finally set up our Patreon account. So if you want to buy us, a butterbeer to help keep the podcast going, you can find us on Patreon. It's just the Inappropriate Harry Potter podcast. But before you even write most of that, it comes up anyway. So,
You're going to be
do it.
flooded with butterbeers. Absolutely flooded. And I think your listeners need to be aware that the more butterbeers you have in you, the more entertaining the show's going to be.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm very, very sober right now. So it's been a very boring episode. And Donna Marie hasn't helped. She's also been very boring.
I've had a couple brandies while I've been on the phone.
I didn't want to say anything, but I thought it was Coca-Cola, but is it brandy?
Yeah, well, yeah, of course it is. Do you think I'm going to speak to the world with as many listeners as tap into this sober? Absolutely not. I
guarantee that someone who is in the Harry Potter films, don't confirm it, anyone that's listening, I know you're out there listening to us and I know you're loving it. I can just see it. Someone like J.K. Rowling or an actor is listening to this. I don't need you to confirm it.
And I hope she finds me on Facebook after she listens to this.
Helena, I've liked you for a very long time.
Oh, don't listen to her, Helena. She's straight. Contact me.
No, I would turn for you. I would turn for you.
Do you know what? I think that's a perfect note to end this podcast on, this episode.
Yeah, if you want Donna Marie and I to fight over Helena Bonham Carter, then please donate some money and we'll video record it.
What a promise. What a concept. Well, thank you for having me on again.
Thank you for coming on at very short notice again. Prissy just keeps letting me down. It's kind of getting a little bit annoying. No, but
always a pleasure.
And yes, have a lovely weekend. Are we going to say mischief mischief managed?
You did. You just did it. It's been
so anticlimactic. Sorry, everyone.
Until next time.
Bye.